Hello and welcome to a showdown between the Houston Texans and Kansas City Chiefs preview. What a weird open to open things up. Well, they're about to play your Houston Texans, the biggest game in franchise history, tomorrow at 3:30 in Kansas City. They're 9-point underdogs. Can they pull it off? Let's take a look at tomorrow's playoff showdown. I'm Paul Gallant. Let's go.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people are.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
Grow up, are you kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast. It is January 17th, 2025, live at youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter at Gallant Says, Instagram at Sports Gallant, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports. You can catch it Monday through Friday around 4 o'clock Central Time. Still working on actually getting started at 4 o'clock. You can also get it occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever it's there. Once again, how many times have we said this before? The Houston Texans will play their biggest game in franchise history tomorrow. They've never won a road playoff game. And they've got to take on a team in the Kansas City Chiefs that's won the last two Super Bowls, that's 15-2, and that beat the Texans 27-19 about a month ago or so. This is going to be a really difficult test for them. And you knew that already. I'm going to say something a little bit controversial, and I wonder if the chats will turn into a turf war between Texans fans and the occasional Kansas City Chiefs fan who stops by. But I'm of the belief that the Chiefs didn't beat the Texans at Arrowhead Stadium about a month ago. I think that the Houston Texans beat the Houston Texans. Why do I say that? Well, let's just go over all of the times that the Houston Texans shot themselves in the foot in that first game. If you were to do one of those season in review NFL films video that they used to do, they'd be like 30 minutes if you didn't make it to a Super Bowl and win it. I think the title of this Texans season would be Plaxico. There's been a lot of careless moments, a la bringing a gun in your sweatpants to a strip club in New York, which, of course, hates the guns. So here are all the spots where the Texans killed themselves. First off, first drive of the game. It's 3rd and 12. Texans are in their own territory. C.J. Stroud has a play developed where there's only 4 guys going out for a pass. All of them are covered, and Stroud sails a pass into triple coverage to Nico Collins. It essentially ends up being a punt, but that was very consistent with what we've seen from C.J. Stroud a lot of this season, where every now and then the guy's just inaccurate. Number 2, second drive of the game for the Texans. It's 2nd and 6 at the Kansas City Chiefs 11. They were close. The Texans ran a wide receiver screen to Nico Collins, and they lost 4 yards. That led to a 3rd and 10 situation. The Texans didn't convert, and they had to kick a field goal. I don't know why they ran as many wide receiver screens in this game as they did, but it was 4 too many. And that first one, okay, maybe you could say the Texans weren't 100% sure how this play would actually work when executed, but they should have gone away from that play. That play right there killed the drive's forward momentum. They had to kick a field goal like they've had to do a lot when they get into the red zone this year. Number 3, moments where the Texans beat the Texans. And this one's a little bit tricky. You probably remember this play. In case you forget about it, this was midway through the second quarter. Texans had just scored a touchdown. They're up 10-7 on Kansas City. It's 2nd and 10, and Patrick Mahomes drops back to pass. This is how the play looked. He throws the ball. Oh, wait, it's a fumble. Henry To'oTo'o picks it up, takes it to the house. Are the Texans about to take a 17-10 lead on the road early? There's Patrick Mahomes, as you can see on YouTube, Twitch, and all the other apps, throwing a flag up in the air, which I think most NFL fans go crazy whenever they see it. And that flag would ultimately be for Derek Barnett coming in late, trying to knock the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. He ultimately hits Mahomes right there, as you can see, in the face mask. By letter of the law, they got to call that. It sucks that they have to call that. He's wearing a helmet. What's a hand really going to do to a head? But he did hit him in the helmet on that play. A lot of Texans fans, I think, were of the belief that Patrick fumbled the ball, that he lost control of the ball before his arm was going forward. I actually disagree with that. I say that even though this camera angle that I'm watching the game at doesn't have the best view, but you can see Danico Autry as he goes by and is being held, which wasn't called. But Mahomes' arm is going forward, and then Autry's arm hits his elbow. He loses control. So if his arm is going forward and he's not bringing the ball in to tuck it, that is indeed an incomplete pass. Should they have called a hold there? I'll allow it. I'll allow you to bitch about the refs there. But it was a roughing the passer by letter of the law. I hate that that's the letter of the law. I think that quarterbacks have far too many rules that benefit them. And I took a look at this before the game, before today's show. Have you ever seen just how many rules there are when it comes to the roughing the passer rule? The NFL has a very long page dedicated to an explanation of the roughing the passer call. You can check it out at operations.nfl.com. Rule 12, Section 2, Article 11. Look how long this section is. You got a lot that you got to go through. I ain't reading all that. I don't want to read all that. Because the act of passing often puts the quarterback or any other player attempting a pass in a position where he is particularly vulnerable to injury, special rules against roughing the passer apply. The referee has principal responsibility for enforcing these rules. Any physical acts against a player who is in a passing posture, which in the referee's judgment are unwarranted by the circumstances of the play, will be called as fouls. The referee will be guided by the following principles. Pass rusher should have clearly known that the ball had already left the passer's hands. I don't think that Derek Barnett should have known that. A rushing defender is prohibited from committing such intimidating and punishing acts such as stuffing a passer into the ground or unnecessarily wrestling or driving him in after the passer has thrown the ball. That didn't happen there. In covering the passer position, referees will be particularly alert to fouls in which defenders impermissibly use the helmet and or face mask to hit the passer or use hands, arms, or other parts of the body to hit the passer forcibly in the head or neck area. He did hit the face mask. I hate that that's the rule. That's the letter of the law. But so basically, no matter what happened there, they were going to overturn that penalty. It's 15 yards, automatic first down. If you go on Google, there's an AI review. I looked this up. Rubbing the passer called after a fumble. Rubbing the passer can be called after a fumble if a defender makes unnecessary or dangerous contact with the quarterback. You take a look at the rule books. Yeah, you're kind of fucked. You touch the quarterback at all, game over. That's just the way that it goes. So, let's get back to the many moments where the Houston Texans beat themselves. Because you could argue that Derek Barnett hitting Patrick Mahomes on the head, just knowing who that guy is an example of the Texans beating themselves. Example 4. The Texans were at the Chiefs 31 with a minute left in the first half. Tank Dell gets called for an offensive pass interference that the broadcast thought was bullshit. In case you forgot about that moment, I'll show you the play here. Here is the Tank Dell OPI, which, to his credit, because you don't typically see this on the call, Todd Blackledge, the color commentator for this game with Noah Eagle, called out. You see Stroud, he checks it down. It's an offensive pass interference that didn't impact the play at all either. It really was a strange call. I mean, Tank Dell is one of the smallest players on the field. You're going to call OPI on the Texans for that? So for all the tinfoil hatters out there who think that the refs always are out to help the Kansas City Chiefs. Yeah, they're never out to help the Houston Texans. There you go. They're about to show the replay of this, and you should be watching along on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, or on X. Don't you think that the contact right there is both ways? Because the Chiefs defensive back, he puts both his hands on Dell before Dell puts his hands around him. So maybe this moment right there, they could have called a hold or something like that. But offensive pass interference, I thought that was a stretch. And credit to Todd Blackledge, who actually called it out. In case you didn't hear it, this is the color commentator for this game talking about the penalty.
Normally in the slot, he's working outside. Let's go, CEO! Wow, I don't see offensive pass interference on that.
I liked hearing that from Todd Blackledge. And I think the good thing that you're going to see in this game between the Texans and Chiefs tomorrow, since it's on ESPN, is you're going to have Troy Aikman on color commentator, and Troy Aikman doesn't fuck around. Troy Aikman, if he sees something that he doesn't agree with, he will call it out, and you need that. I don't think CBS would do that. It doesn't help that on CBS, if you're watching a game, it takes forever to see the replay. Like they generally don't show it. You wait a long period of time. What the hell happened? What the hell happened? But it takes them a while to get there. So that was number 4, a play where the Texans beat themselves. Not there with that Tank Dell offensive pass interference, because I think that was a bullshit call. A couple of plays later, since the Texans were all of a sudden in a 1st and 20 situation, Stroud throws one of the worst interceptions you're ever going to see. He jumped while he threw it. All he needed to do was check the ball down, and the Texans get a little bit closer to Kaimi Fairbairn field goal range. I don't think they would have kicked a field goal from the 41 on 4th and 20, given that it didn't seem to be that warm at Arrowhead Stadium. I don't know how they feel about Kaimi Fairbairn kicking outdoors from a mile away. But that interception that Stroud threw gave the Chiefs a short field. They would drive down the field and kick a field goal before halftime. And next thing you know, the Texans are looking up at the scoreboard at a, what was it? It was a 17-10 lead for Kansas City. More Houston Texans beating themselves in a game where I don't think the Chiefs won. I think the Texans beat themselves. No, there's skill to that in the NFL. It's not to take anything away from the Chiefs. I just felt like the Texans shot themselves in the foot so much. There was no way they were going to be able to win a game on the road. The 6th drive of the game, this is right after C.J. Stroud hit Tank Dell for the long touchdown pass. Dell suffers the injury, and Kaimi Fairbairn misses the extra point, which should be mistake number 5. So here's mistake number 6. After the Texans had that moment happen, I think a lot of us think, yeah, they didn't seem to handle that moment from an emotional standpoint very well, and the game was never close after that, but it was. The Texans stuffed the Chiefs on a 4th and 1 at midfield, the drive right after. So they have the ball at Kansas City's 47. It's 2nd and 8. And then they tried their 4th wide receiver screen of the game, and it lost yards. It sets up a 3rd and 9. And amazingly, they almost converted the 3rd and 9. Stroud actually was pretty good in 3rd and long situations in this game. But here's the problem. Stroud finds Dalton Schultz on the left sideline. Schultz is open, and Schultz drops it. He catches that. Texans are in field goal range. Instead, the Texans have to punt. The very next Houston Texans drive, this is mistake number 7, which I think further shows that the Texans lost that game in Kansas City more than the Chiefs won it. They drove all the way down to the Chiefs' 10. They didn't die after the Tank Dell injury, even if C.J. Stroud cried and everyone made fun of him. But Stroud fucked up here. It's a 1st and 10, 1st and goal from the 10. Stroud rolls out of the pocket, and he could have thrown the football away, out the back of the end zone, out of bounds. Instead, he runs out of bounds and he loses 5 yards. I'm cool with Stroud taking off and running, and I think he's going to do that a little bit more going forward, given how much success he had doing that against the Chargers. He also had some success doing that against the Jets earlier this year, though he was sacked 8 times in that game. But I don't want him running out of bounds. Throw it away if you cannot get back to the line of scrimmage. This is basic stuff. So all of a sudden, it's 2nd and goal from the 15, and then C.J. Stroud and the Texans offense are slow getting out of the huddle. They're called for a delay of game. It's 3rd and goal from the 20. They have to kick a field goal. The Texans shot themselves in the foot a lot in that game a couple of weeks ago. Now, does that mean that I think that the Texans are going to win? That they're going to upset the Chiefs on the road? We'll get to that a little bit later. First, a couple of updates for the Texans in the last 24 hours. I think some people were concerned about the latest injury report. You take a look at it. Robert Woods, who didn't practice all week, was out of practice on Thursday, which makes you wonder about the Texans receiving group. Is John Mechie going to be trustworthy in this game? Is Xavier Hutchinson going to be able to do what he did before? He's listed as questionable for the game. Perhaps Woods will be able to go. I think he's going to need to go. Who's going to return punts? Who's going to be the second most trustworthy receiver on the team? I just do not buy that John Mechie is that guy. And Xavier Hutchinson's had some moments, but Xavier Hutchinson's your wide receiver 5. Best case scenario, you know? Obviously, injuries have changed things a little bit, but hell, if Dell and Diggs are healthy, he's probably wide receiver 6 behind Mechie and behind Woods. Whatever the case. Woods is questionable. He hasn't practiced all week. But this was a good bit of news. Joe Mixon did not practice yesterday. Usually the last practice of the week, generally on Friday, but since this game is on a Saturday, it was a Thursday practice. It's usually the lightest practice of the week. So Mixon not practicing, not that big of a deal. You assume, given that he was limited in practice with an ankle issue on Wednesday, he's not going to sit out this game. Ain't no way. Chancellor Johnson of Channel 2 gives us this video of Joe Mixon getting onto the Houston Texans team bus before they go off to fly to Kansas City, which they did at some point this afternoon. There he is. He's got some food. He's got some snacks. No limp. Now, I don't know how well Chancellor was able to see that off of his phone. Maybe he saw a little bit better with his eyes. But he isn't limping. That should have you excited. Potentially healthy Joe Mixon. They're going to need a lot of Joe Mixon in this game tomorrow. More news before the game on the Houston Texans injury front. Azeez Al-Shaair was limited in practice with a knee injury, but he will actually play in this game against the Chiefs. He was not able to go last time around because of that suspension after the hit of Trevor Lawrence. As far as the rest of the injury report, it's going to be interesting to see what the Texans do on the offensive line because Shaq Mason, who got injured against the Chiefs earlier this year, he was a full participant in practice. Juice Scruggs, also a full participant in practice. Who's going to be the right guard? Dalton Schultz, full participant in practice with a shoulder issue. He was limited on Wednesday. You also see that Danico Autry, who was limited in practice on Wednesday, was back to a full practice. It seems that everyone's going to be good to go, that you expected to be good to go going into this one. Meanwhile, the Chiefs starters who have not played in forever, I think it's been since Christmas Day against the Steelers, they're all good to go too. So there might be rust for the Chiefs, but the idea that there's going to be injuries, keeping guys out, unless something happens on the way to the game, some sort of baseball injury where someone, falls in the shower, I don't see it happening. So let's keep talking about this game. Let's keep looking ahead to the Texans and the Chiefs. The Chiefs did get fortunate in game number 1. And not just courtesy of the referees here. It's partly due to some of the Texans shooting themselves in the foot, but the refs did help them out a little bit. I do think generally that calls even themselves out over the course of a season, if not over the course of a game. But there were some moments where the Chiefs got lucky in a game where the Texans could not stop shooting themselves in the foot. First drive of the game for the Texans, I talked about that interception that Stroud threw to Nico Collins already. He sailed it. He shouldn't have thrown the ball, but again, it kind of operated like a very short punt of about 35 yards or so. Second drive of the game, Texans ended up scoring a touchdown on this drive, but check that. I think I screwed that up there. Because, they kicked a field goal the second drive of the game. This is the third drive of the game. Stroud chucks it deep to Tank Dell. Dell draws contact from 2 defenders. There were no calls made on that moment. No call. Go back and watch it. There's 2 defenders there, and I'm not really sure what the referee saw, but Dell is a smaller receiver, and you would think that any shoving would be very noticeable, given that he's probably going to strongly react to any shoving. But that's what went down. Another moment where the Chiefs got fortunate. We talked about this earlier. The roughing the passer penalty on Mahomes because Barnett's hand hit his face mask. They were milliseconds away from knocking the ball out of his hand before he even threw it. Danico Autry just missed hitting his elbow before he gets the arm going forward. And hell, if Mahomes is a split second later throwing that ball, I feel like Barnett might have hit him in the arm and forced a fumble there too. Mahomes is one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He's really difficult to sack. He did get the football out there by letter of the law that was roughing the passer. I just hate that that's what we have to do these days and that people are out there looking and bitching and moaning for roughing the passer calls, whether they're the actual quarterbacks themselves. Yes, I know my favorite quarterback ever did the same thing. Or it's the fans watching the game on TV, watching the game in the stands. Boo! Like bitching and moaning that you want a personal foul, roughing the passer call to help you out. More moments where the Kansas City Chiefs got fortunate. We showed you the Tank Dell offensive pass interference that the broadcast thought was bullshit. There was also a moment where Derek Stingley was called for this hold on DeAndre Hopkins, this pass interference call on DeAndre Hopkins, and unfortunately it overturned a Houston Texans sack. If you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, you can watch it along with me right now. So you see Stroud getting just absolutely destroyed. Not Stroud. Mahomes getting absolutely destroyed by Mario Edwards there. Thrown to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Mahomes gets up, looks a little rattled, and it was a defensive holding call against Derek Stingley downfield. They're going to show the replay in just a moment. And once again, Todd Blackledge seemed to think that the referees were kind of on some bullshit with at least a couple of these calls that went the way of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Penalty goes against Derek Stingley Jr. Well, we have seen this in the first half. Critical penalties against the Texans, wiping out good plays by the rest of the defense. Stingley working on Hopkins. And instead of the negative play and the sack by Mario Edwards, it's an automatic first down.
A little less anti-ref in nature that time around. It's more of a scoff. That's all he gave us, but that was more than enough. And I think a lot of people who watched the game that were Texans fans thought that was confirmation that that call was horseshit. So that's another moment where the Chiefs got fortunate. They also got fortunate when the Texans scored that touchdown to pull within 1 point because Tank Dell, who was the best Texans player all game, I mean, his knee essentially exploded. He had 6 catches for 98 yards in that touchdown, plus a nice punt return to that point. And yeah, that bullshit offensive pass interference call that was made. Fairbairn misses the extra point right after. Another bit of fortune for the Chiefs. And then, as I brought up before, right after the Texans ran that dumb screen to set up a 3rd and 9, after they had just stuffed the Chiefs on a 4th and short, Dalton Schultz drops a pass that would have given them a first down on 3rd and 9, and the Chiefs offense got going right after the Texans punted the ball away. So, yeah, you can look at the last time the Texans and Chiefs played, and you can honestly say, 1, the Texans lost the game more than the Chiefs won the game, and 2, the Chiefs got very lucky along the way in a game where the Texans couldn't stop shooting themselves in the foot. Now, I do think it's fair to say that the Texans had their fair share of luck as well. Second drive of the game when the Texans had that touchdown pass from C.J. Stroud to Dalton Schultz. Blake Fisher got away with a clear hold, and Dalton Schultz got away with clear offensive pass interference. Second drive of the game for Kansas City. The Chiefs still scored a touchdown here, but Patrick Mahomes had their receiver Watson wide open deep for a touchdown. The ball hit him right in the hands. They would still go on to score a touchdown on that drive, but that was one of those moments where Kalen Bullock, who gambles from time to time, got caught gambling. The last couple of times where the Texans got fortunate, 4th drive of the game for Kansas City, a drive that ultimately ends in a field goal. Patrick Mahomes hits Xavier Worthy on an incredible throw down the right sideline. Somehow got it through to Worthy despite Derek Stingley being lockstep with Worthy in coverage. Worthy just only got 1 foot down. He caught it, but he wasn't able to get 2 feet down. That could have been a touchdown. And the last moment where the Texans got fortunate, this was the 6th drive of the game, right before the Tank Dell touchdown. Robert Woods caught a pass for about 15 yards and fumbled at the end of the play. The ball went directly back to him. No Chief player was able to fall on it. So they did get a little bit lucky themselves in this game, even though perhaps from a referee perspective, things didn't go their way. As far as a prediction for Texans Chiefs, I've got a hurdle that I can't quite get over. The Texans offense specifically has shot itself in the foot on a weekly basis for the entirety of this year. And I'm supposed to believe that this game on the road against the two-time defending champions who have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, a Hall of Fame head coach in Andy Reid, a Hall of Fame tight end in Travis Kelce, a Hall of Fame pass rusher going up against their very shaky musical chair interior offensive line in Chris Jones. This is the game where the offense doesn't shoot itself in the foot in a setting where, as a franchise, the Texans have never won any road playoff game. They've never won. They've been to Arrowhead before, and they lost. They've been to Gillette Stadium before, and they've lost a couple of times. It sucks going up against the two best quarterbacks in recent NFL history. Tom Brady twice, Patrick Mahomes once with Deshaun Watson. And yeah, I know they got out to that lead, but they've never won on the road before. And this team that gets sloppy on offense is going to win on the road against all of those things in one of the most difficult environments in the league, where it's also going to be colder than 32 degrees. I wish I had the chutzpah to pick the Texans, but this is who they've been all year. If they change their stripes now, great. Why should I believe it's going to happen? Especially when this time around, in a rematch of a game that they played just a month ago, the guy who was the best player on offense for them all game, Tank Dell, isn't going to play. 6 catches, 98 yards, and a touchdown. I so badly want to pick the Texans. As the week has gone on, I've started thinking back to some of the fun upsets that I experienced as a young Patriots fan, specifically that 2001-2002 season when Tom Brady was in his second year, was a game manager for a team that had a really good defense. Crazier things have happened. We've seen teams with great defenses and game manager quarterbacks win Super Bowls, whether it was the 2000 Ravens with Trent Dilfer or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 2002 with Brad Johnson. And maybe you want to say both the Eli Manning Super Bowls that the Giants won over the Patriots. You could say those ones were won because of fearsome pass rushes. But if I'm picking the Texans to win tomorrow, I'm not sounding honest. So that's my big reservation. I hope they make me wrong. They made me wrong last weekend against the Chargers. I'm hoping that they do it again. As far as this actual game itself, here are the things that do need to happen for a Texans win, which I don't think is impossible. I'm just not picking it to happen. They need to get sacks. They only had 1 in the first game. They technically had 3. You had 1 called back on the Derek Barnett hit to the head of Patrick Mahomes. It was originally ruled a fumble. It was a forward pass. Go back and watch it. I'll debate you all day on that. That was definitely a forward pass. I think the roughing the passer call was bullshit. He's wearing a helmet. It's a hand. Hands don't do shit to a helmet. The hand's not going to do anything. You're going to hurt your hand more likely than you are going to hurt the quarterback by slapping him in the face mask. But you also saw a Derek Stingley hold overturn another Texans sack of Patrick Mahomes. They need more than 1 sack in this game. And hopefully with those sacks, if they do come, they'll get a takeaway. Maybe they'll score points off of it. They had the pick 6 by Eric Murray against the Chargers. They did have a touchdown that got taken off the board against the Chiefs with that fumble return for a touchdown. We've seen them score on defense before this year. We saw them score on defense a couple of times in the playoffs last year. It feels like that's what it's going to take to win on the road. Completely taking advantage of a Kansas City Chiefs mistake. It's been a lot more difficult for that team offensively this year than in years past. Do not get it twisted. This is not me disrespecting Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. That's just the truth. Other things that need to happen for a potential Texans upset. Joe Mixon, who had 14 carries for 57 yards in the first Texans-Chiefs game, plus a catch for 14 yards, he's going to need to have a couple of explosive plays. He really only had 3 noteworthy plays in a largely quiet game against the Chiefs, but that's been him all year. The offensive line in front of him, it's just not good when it comes to run blocking, to road grading. He had a 22-yard run in the first half. The second drive of the game led to a field goal. He had a 14-yard catch before halftime in Stroud's jump interception. A 13-yard carry on that second half field goal drive that the Texans had late. He's going to need a couple of big plays because that's the Joe Mixon experience with the Texans. He has had an awesome season in spite of the truly bad run blocking by this Texans team. More keys to a potential Texans upset victory. They must protect C.J. Stroud. And by the way, they did a decent job of protecting C.J. Stroud in this game, which was a game where they were forced to put Zach Thomas out there on the offensive line. Stroud was sacked just twice in this game. He's been sacked 2 times or less just 8 times this year, which, okay, that's almost half of the games. But he's been sacked 2 times or more in 9 games in the regular season. I guess technically the game against the Titans doesn't count because he barely played in that one. So half of this season, in the regular season, he has been sacked over 2 times. They're going to have to keep Travis Kelce in check. I don't know if this is going to be the Travis Kelce wake-up game. Travis Kelce has had a lot of playoff success against the Texans in the past. Remember that 30-0 awful Chiefs win over the Texans where they ran the Wildcat? It was a 7-0 game. Alfred Blue had this big carry down to the Chiefs 2, and then they put J.J. Watt in there under center, and J.J. Watt is stuffed. The Texans, I think, turned the football over the next play. Brian Hoyer fumbled. I want to say it was a fumbled snap. Hoyer had the worst game of any quarterback in playoff history the last 10 years. 4 interceptions on 15 to 34 passing. Oh, boy. 2 fumbles. 1 of them lost. In that game, Travis Kelce had 8 catches for 128 yards. If you take a look at Texans-Chiefs in the 2019 to 2020 playoffs when the Texans had a 24-0 lead and blew it, Travis Kelce, 10 catches, 134 yards, and 3 touchdowns. These things seem to happen when a team wins 51-31. But I know a lot of people look at Travis Kelce this year. They don't think he's the same player. I would never underestimate Travis Kelce, and there's a part of me that thinks that the guy's like a bear kind of hibernating until the playoffs, until the games actually matter. But in that game, they held him in check. 5 catches for 30 yards. This was their first game without Jalen Petrie, who had suffered that season-ending pectoral injury against the Dolphins. Jimmy Ward got hurt in this game. I am curious as to what they do to keep Kelce in check. Xavier Worthy maybe had his best game with the Chiefs, and Hollywood Brown played his first game for the Chiefs. And against a Texans secondary that I think we would say has the edge, with Derek Stingley, arguably the best corner in the league, and Kamari Lassiter having a hell of a rookie season, we would say against the outside guys, Texans should have the edge, but those guys did produce for what it's worth. And I'm curious as to if they change the game plan up a little bit. Both the Chiefs, do they see that, hey, look, we had some success throwing to these guys, we're going to keep throwing to them, and dare Derek Stingley and Kamari Lassiter to try to get through a game without the referees helping us out and calling a flag or something like that? Or do they say, you know what, we're going to try to get DeAndre Hopkins involved? Because Hopkins is physical, and Hopkins seems like he is a better person to throw out there and try to feed against those two. But Hopkins hasn't done much, and he only had 4 catches for 37 yards in that first Texans-Chiefs game. Travis Kelce, 5 catches for 30 yards that first Texans-Chiefs game. Do the Texans try to put Derek Stingley on him? This is me throwing out like Madden suggestions. Do the Texans put like Kalen Bullock on him? The Texans just say, fuck it. You're going to throw to Travis Kelce. You're going to throw to Travis Kelce. We'll see. But keeping Kelce in check and daring the smaller Chiefs wide receivers to beat you again in a cold weather game where I doubt that they're going to want to be out there. Xavier Worthy, he's a small fella. I imagine he gets cold quickly. Hollywood Brown, same thing. You want those guys to beat you, not Travis Kelce. Oof. I got the box scores for those last couple of Texans-Chiefs playoff games. Both times the Texans played the Chiefs in the playoffs, it was a matchup that had happened earlier in the year. 2015, that was when Alex Smith was quarterback. Week 1, in a game where both Brian Hoyer and Ryan Mallett played to open up the 2015 season, Alex Smith had 3 touchdown passes, and that was the first time, I feel like that was the first time. Was Tyreek Hill on the Chiefs at this point in time? No, I don't think Tyreek Hill was there yet. Maybe he was. I felt like Tyreek Hill was a punt returner in that game. And I feel like, because I remember talking to Charles James after the game. I felt like he actually played in that game. Maybe it was the next season. I honestly forget when Tyreek Hill's rookie year was. Anyways, no one cares. He's not on that team anymore. But first game that year, the Chiefs beat them 27-20. The rematch, Chiefs beat them 30-0. That's the worst playoff loss for the Texans ever, which is saying something because against the Chiefs, they had the 24-0 lead, and they lost 51-31. The Texans actually beat the Chiefs earlier that year. They were down 17-3 in the first quarter, scored 20 points in the second, and they ultimately won 31-24 in a game where Deshaun Watson didn't do very well, but Carlos Hyde had 116 yards and a touchdown running. Darren Fells was their leading receiver in that game, 6 catches for 69 yards. As far as this game, I joke all the time that anytime the Texans play a game in the second round of the playoffs, it is the biggest game in franchise history. I also say this all the time on the radio show. Every day is a day that you should get up and approach like it's the greatest day of your life. And tomorrow could be the greatest day of our lives, especially if the Texans finally go somewhere that no Houston professional football team has gone since the 1979 to 1980 Oilers, where they made it to the AFC Championship game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, only to lose on a bullshit call where a throw to Mike Renfro in the end zone was overturned, when it was clearly a reception shown by television replay in the 70s to actually be a touchdown. Here is C.J. Stroud when asked what a AFC Championship appearance, the first ever for the Houston Texans, would mean.
Man, I mean, huge, I didn't know that, but I think that'll be a huge accomplishment, and, this team are really motivated to, go up there and play some good ball, and, a great Kansas City team was been in these moments forever, so, it's gonna take all of us, it's gonna take a lot of, execution and, get that done, so we gotta be on our A game.
I'm always surprised by people having a lack of NFL history knowledge when they play in the league, and maybe this is just because I'm a dork. And I'm obsessed with the history of the NFL, which is my favorite league for my favorite sport. But it is surprising that he didn't know that they've never made it to an AFC Championship game before. Hell, they're the only team in the AFC South that hasn't made it. Even the Jaguars have made it a couple of times. Lost to the Patriots both times. Shout out to my boys growing up. More from C.J. Stroud. He was asked how the offense can replicate what it did against the Los Angeles Chargers this past Saturday. Here is the starting quarterback of the Houston Texans.
Just execution, just owning the little things. And, finally we've been able to, get some practice with some guys, because we didn't really have all these guys in training camp or OTAs. So now we're able to get some guys in that we've been here for a couple weeks now and, moving guys up from practice squad to get more time and reps down. So that showed in the last game. So we try to take that over. It's just execution.
Oh, I mean, again, I get that they're only going to give us cliches at the podium, but wouldn't you like to hear something other than execution? As far as things that could get the Texans offense to keep on doing what it did. God, I would love to hear something else. Like, oh, yeah, we got to find a spark. We got to execute. Again, my big obstacle when it comes to picking the Texans to potentially win tomorrow is that they have shot themselves in the foot on offense all year long, and you're asking them to win on the road with the guy who was the best player on the field the last time these two teams played, Tank Dell, out. Sorry, I can't pull the trigger. I want to so badly. Let's keep on going through things that CJ Stroud said this week. This is Big Sarge asking him about his football IQ.
One of the highest attributes that you've been given is your football IQ. How much of playing against this Kansas City Chiefs team in Week 16 will you be able to use heading into this divisional game?
It's huge, man. You know, their DC, you know, he's amazing. He does a lot of great blitz packages and plays a lot of sound coverage, you know, bend don't break type of defense, you know, but they make a lot of plays. They attack the football, you know, and they're playing at a high level. You know, they've been able to uphold their team a lot this year, you know, and keep the games close, you know, and you know, it starts up front with Chris Jones, amazing player, you know, and then Nick Bolden, great player. The whole linebacker team communicates very well. You know, Reed in the back doing his thing, and then, you know, McDuffie I think is, like I told y'all before, one of the best corners in the league in my opinion, and plays nickel too. So, you know, they do a lot of great things, and, you know, their coaches know how to put them in positions to, you know, execute at a high level. So, you know, we got to be on our A game and try to do our best to, you know, withstand the surge early on and, you know, chop wood, carry water throughout the game.
Stroud loves that chop wood, carry water. Where does he get that from? You got to chop wood and carry water. He's playing Rust or something like that. Some sort of survival game. Watch a little Walking Dead. I'm curious about that. Sarge asks Stroud about his football IQ. I do think that Stroud is a very smart player when it comes to studying the film, understanding how to learn from the film. But he's got to stop doing dumb shit like throwing an interception while jumping, throwing passes that towards the sideline, possibly throwaways that are in danger of being intercepted. Like, that's one of his biggest problems. Throwaways should not be remotely close to being intercepted. And this year, that's been a problem all season long. Also, he's got to be aware to know to throw the football away, and by away, I mean all the way out of bounds instead of running out of bounds. He's had a couple of times this year where instead of throwing it away, he's run out of bounds. I don't know if he's having a brain fart in those moments, but you can't do that, and you can't have a delay of game ever, but especially in the red zone. And these are things that happen against the Chiefs. So I'm hoping he learns from some of the many little mistakes that he made in that game. Yeah, he's got a great football IQ. Blah, 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 blah. But come on. You know, we need to see Stroud put together the first complete game that he's had all year. And it's just hard to imagine that happening against the, of all teams, two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs on the road. You know, that's just too much to ask for. It doesn't feel like the vibes are particularly high for this Texans and Chiefs game. And it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot of excitement from casual Texans fans. I took a look on Texans or Houston Reddit. A man is fixing for a championship parade in downtown Houston. He wants a parade, and people are hating. Victory hat. No, but Golden Corral is open all day. Highly unlikely. This person, Lil Kill, says he'd only want to see a parade if Ted Cruz gets hit by another beer. The Duke S2, not this season. It's good to dream. Waking up isn't always as nice. You were smoking the good stuff, I see. You just jinxed it. Certainly not this year. We are way too inconsistent. You'll have better luck just going to Detroit after the Lions win the Super Bowl and enjoying the parade there. No. Houston has a better chance of winning a Stanley Cup than a Super Bowl, and we don't even have an NHL team. Not this season. If Baltimore and KC disappear from existence, we might have a chance. Fuck no. Not anytime soon. If a miracle from God himself happens, or Jesus takes over. Speaking of, I know that the Houston Texans and whether it's C.J. Stroud or D'Amico Ryans, these are guys who are men of faith. Well, we talk about miracles from God. I would like C.J. Stroud to manifest the man upstairs to pay attention to something other than this. Here is C.J. Stroud at his press conference after the Texans took down the Chargers.
I look at that team that Jesus has his literal hand on that team, man.
He's talking about Ohio fucking State. Hey, Jesus. Buddy boy. Fuck Ohio State. Fuck them. Fuck them with a shovel. Fuck them. Their fans are so arrogant, so cocky. I hope that Jesus sides with the good old Catholics and not the Protestants in Notre Dame versus Ohio State on Monday. But CJ, let's manifest the Lord meddling in tomorrow's game, not that game. D'Amico Ryans, maybe wear a bigger cross on the sideline. Although I think that's sacrilegious, whatever. Anyway, there are more comments in this Houston Reddit. Everyone's saying no. No, not this year. No, give him time. Not as bad as the Dallas anesthesiologist killing patients drug-free. No, nah. It would be cool. I'm not holding my breath. Not likely. This guy's drinking some strong-ass Kool-Aid. Here's one. Everyone in this thread is a Debbie Downer. It's all true that it's highly unlikely. And we really need to have turned a huge corner to even be competitive. But I feel like that's not the point. OP didn't even say like it for sure was going to happen. We're at the game and anything can happen. This is a hype post and I'm all for it. It would be nice if more people in this city felt that hype. And I don't know. Maybe it's going to take someone motivating them. Maybe this is what's going to take. I don't know how many people saw this, but can you believe what this Chiefs player said about the Houston Texans going into this game tomorrow, 3:30, with the Chiefs 9-point favorites? Can you believe anyone on the Chiefs is actually talking shit? Well, guys, guess what happened? I can't believe what I'm about to share with you, but this is real audio of Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs talking shit about our beloved Houston Texans. Trust me, this is real.
Kansas City has nothing to worry about. Despite Houston's impressive victory over the Los Angeles Chargers, this is not a team fans should take seriously. The Texans have almost no chance to beat the Chiefs, illustrated by their pathetic first-half performance that only looked impressive thanks to Justin Herbert's 4 interceptions.
I can't believe he's saying this.
If Kansas City doesn't win this easy matchup, they had no business in the playoffs in the first place. There's little to suggest the Texans are capable of taking down an elite team like the Chiefs. If the Texans can't beat this pathetic team, they never had any business competing for a three-peat in the first place.
Can't believe that Patrick Mahomes said all those things. Incredibly disrespectful, and hopefully the Houston Texans use that as bulletin board material the same way that, for whatever reason, they used Rex Ryan as bulletin board material. And maybe this will help too. Random pundits with hot takes on the Speak for Your Pizza shows of ESPN and Fox Sports. This took place on the TV show Speak, which featured Paul Pierce, Joy Taylor, who believes that our country will not be free in a matter of days, also dealing with some other things, Keyshawn Johnson and Michael Irvin. Paul Pierce is somebody that I loved very much growing up as a Boston Celtics fan. If you know this already, I am originally from Massachusetts, but yeah, I root for Houston sports teams because I cover them for a living. I want them to win. I don't want to be mad. I don't want to yell about them. Anyway, here is Paul Pierce on Speak making quite the bet about the Kansas City Chiefs and why they're going to beat the Texans tomorrow.
If the Chiefs lose to the Texans,
it's a miracle.
I live 15 miles away from here. I'm walking in.
That's what Paul was saying in the media room. Talking about, I'm walking.
Don't do that. I'm walking in on the meet. I'm walking here. I'm walking here if they lose the Texans. I'm walking here 15 miles.
They could, though.
I'm walking.
I would hate to see you have to walk.
No, it's going.
Because you know, coming over that 405, it's a hill, and the hill is kind of steep.
That's okay. I'm gonna get up at 5 in the morning.
It might take you longer than that.
Don't do that. Don't say that, Paul, because you're saying this, and if it happens...
I'm walking.
Bro.
I'm telling the world right now, you can look me in my face. I'm looking right at the camera.
8-hour walk.
Listen, I'm walking here on Monday. If the Chiefs lose to Houston, it's an 8-hour walk, and we're going to see what's up.
How slow are you walking? 8-hour walk, 15 miles? 3 miles per hour. Should be 5-hour walk at most. 5-hour walk. I love Paul Pierce. I love the truth. And I like that he's going on these TV shows doing the same shit that Rex Ryan was doing last week. But let's just do a little math here. 15 miles should not take 8 hours to walk if you're walking fast. I see my buddy Sam from college. He's in the chats right now on the Instagram side of things. We were both fast walkers back in the day. Fast walkers, that's key. More comments. The Ultimate Fan is in the house on the Instagram side of things. What's up, Steve? Steve is going all the way, I'm hoping, to Kansas City. I want to see you, Steve, at some point in the game, in the crowd in Kansas City. If you're not going, I totally get it. I totally get it. It's supposed to be cold as balls up there. It's a fun gamble by Paul Pierce. I have actually made a similar gamble because if you were listening earlier, I do think that the Chiefs are going to win. I do think they're going to cover. I feel like the way that the Texans have been shooting themselves in the foot all year, it's unlikely to stop Saturday. I hope that I'm wrong, but it is supposed to be very cold in Houston on Monday, and last year, and you can see this on all my social media channels, last year, in solidarity with the Texans, and because a lot of people were being massive pussies about the idea of the Texans playing outdoor football, I, too, will be walking to work like Paul Pierce if the Houston Texans beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Walking to work, if I leave for work at about 11, it's going to be 36 degrees on Monday. I mean, that's kind of cold. It's not that cold, though. I will probably do it in my ridiculous, straight out of the 1980s ski suit. Hopefully, I will not get mugged or run over on Westheimer. The Ultimate Fan says he's staying here. H-Town's where I'll be, and you're wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Sam asks if I already did this. Yeah, I did this last year. We'll do it again. But this time we'll do it if I'm wrong. Last year I did it in solidarity because a bunch of people were bitching and moaning and being giant pussies about playing football outside. So there you go. There's a little bit of motivational fuel from Paul Pierce. I think it's really funny that the Chiefs keep on finding ways to motivate themselves. And I guess you have to do this when you're two-time defending Super Bowl champions. But here is Travis Kelce on with Pat McAfee talking about the disrespect that the Chiefs have endured in the midst of a year where they're 15-2.
Have you heard all that noise? And what is this year's team like versus maybe years past?
Well, we're finding different ways to win and more ways to win early on and throughout the season. I think last year we dealt with finding ways to lose, and you can learn from both. But learning from the games you win is a whole lot more fun. And I think we got a lot of confidence in this team and a lot of guys that are willing to go that extra mile, man. And we've definitely heard all the chatter and guys like Rex Ryan saying that this team can't win in the playoffs and he's seen it before.
It's always Rex Ryan. Why is it always Rex Ryan? How did Rex Ryan become the only NFL pundit that actually motivates NFL teams? Is it because he used to be a coach? Like, he's been out of the game for a while. He wasn't even that good of a head coach. He's good on TV. He's entertaining. Doesn't mean he's right, but he's entertaining. Rex Ryan disrespected the Texans. Rex Ryan disrespected the Chiefs. Rex Ryan cannot be motivating the entire NFL. That should not be happening. Teams should be able to motivate themselves. Chiefs obviously are trying to go for a three-peat, and the Texans are trying to do something that they've never done in franchise history. Anyway, that was Travis Kelce on the Pat McAfee show. Pat did lead him into that question, asking him about, I guess, comments that have been made that have been disrespectful of the Kansas City Chiefs. I want to get you guys pumped up before the game begins, and I know this is definitely going to get me dinged for copyright on the YouTube channel, so this will get demonetized, but whatever. This ain't about making money. This is about entertaining you guys. Honestly, I feel like these other TV shows, which generally you see on mute at the gym, I think they should be paying me for doing all the promotion I've been doing of them this week, whether it's on Fox Sports or it's on ESPN. This is from the same TV show, Speak. Michael Irvin, like many men who have gone to school at Miami, is very good, I guess, at impromptu speeches where it seems like he's speaking in tongues. Michael Irvin decided to give the Houston Texans a pep talk yesterday on the TV show Speak, not to be confused with Speak for Your Pizza or any of the other shows of that ilk. Let's watch it and comment along.
Michael, who needs to get it together this week?
And I'm talking about a great opportunity here, and I'm talking to the Texans, and I would say something like this, and you guys hear this all the time. I have this saying that I always say, I measure men in distance travel. That means don't tell me about where you are. Tell me about where you started and let me see where you are, and I shall measure you accordingly. Simply put, men, when we recognize and discuss where we are.
I think he's still trying to figure out what he's actually saying here, but he's starting to get going. This is like an Animal House. Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor? Heck no. Never seen Animal House. Then you're probably going to say, boy, it was the Japanese who bombed Pearl Harbor. No, watch Animal House. The guy gets in the middle of a speech. What was it? John Belushi? And they just let him keep going. More Michael Irvin.
Our journey and compare it to where we started on our journey just 2 short years ago. Woo. Some may call this kind of meteoric rise incredible. Some may call it unbelievable. And some may go as far as to call it a miracle. A miracle. Man, we don't need to revisit in details the devastation that caused the annihilation of that once young, proud organization.
Is he rhyming? Is he reading that off of a script, or is he actually riffing to the point where he's rhyming words? This is the kind of shit that Johnny Cochran, I think, was doing in court back in the day when he was defending OJ. More Michael Irvin.
But as we seek to learn from all, we must extrapolate that it touched mightily the two most important positions of any and every great team, the quarterback and the head coach. I remember when we finally came together and we appointed a very anointed head coach named DeMeco Ryan. Then he immediately pointed to a very anointed young quarterback named C.J. Stroud.
Named J.C.? C.J. J.C. Is C.J. the second coming of J.C.? No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, and I'm also not going to play C.J. Stroud talking about Jesus touching Ohio State.
And determine you are going to be my man. That feeling we had that day deep down inside confirmed that we already knew that our journey will forever be connected, and it is ordained. So we immediately believed in each other, trusted one another, and went to work on our goals as brothers. My brothers, I need you to understand clearly what I am saying right here.
Man, he rhymes a lot. Other, brother. Is this intentional? Unintentional? It's fantastic.
Because what I'm talking about is exactly how we got here. When everybody out there saw it as a great obstacle, we made it our great opportunity. Man, we will face what they are calling the greatest obstacle. One of the greatest coach of all time in head coach Andy Reid. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Patrick Mahomes. And together, they are going for one of the greatest records and marks of all time.
Honestly, this isn't really a pep talk as much as it's a fantastic summation of what this matchup actually is, at least to this point. This is the kind of video that's not necessarily a pep talk, but say you've got, that like build up montage on a broadcast, whether it's ESPN or Fox or CBS or NBC. Like, this is something that you have
unprecedented third straight Super Bowl
before the broadcast actually begins. And I don't know if it's a pep talk, but here's more Michael Irvin.
Championship. They have been the best of the best. So when you play the best of the best, that kind of best must bring the best out of all of us. All the commentary we hear right now is saying it will take a miracle for the Texans to win this game. Well, I say, let's give them that miracle. We have done it before. We're ready to do it again. We know what it took before.
He loses his voice.
And we are ready to give it again. Now let's get up and run out here and attack this great obstacle and show the world we made it. Our great opportunity. Our great opportunity. That's what that is. Okay.
God damn, that guy's got such great charisma on camera. He's looking at the camera the whole time. He's walking around. I do feel motivated, but I feel like in the same way that Ray Lewis's teammates in Baltimore were motivated, I'm motivated, but I don't know why, because I don't know what's happening right now. I just can't look away from what's happening in front of me.
You go against the champs, the best. Yeah. As a young guy like this, young team, imagine.
Look at Keyshawn, he's so bored. He's just like taking notes.
Where they were 2 years ago, and they come up and beat Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, a second-year head coach and a second-year quarterback.
Look at Keyshawn's face. So unimpressed. So there you go. That's Michael Irvin giving a pep talk to the Houston Texans. Does that have you ready to run through a wall? Maybe, maybe not. Believe it or not, there's actually a couple of pundits that are picking the Texans to win. And again, I'm going to continue to promote the fine people that work on all those Speak for Your Pizza TV shows. First off, you got, get this, Greg Jennings officially predicting the Texans to win. We played him yesterday where he was clearly bristling at Nick Wright's arrogance when it came to the Chiefs. Here he is seemingly picking the Texans to beat the Chiefs entirely because Nick Wright has annoyed him. Here is Greg Jennings of First Things First on Fox Sports 1.
You've said this all season long. This is not who the Chiefs are. They don't blow teams out. Everybody wants to see the Chiefs blow teams out. It's not how we win games. Have you not said that all season long?
Yeah, that's 100% true.
It's not happening this weekend. The Houston Texans will go into Arrowhead and they will compete. And
Great
hopefully...
That wasn't Nick. That was Kevin Wilde's great take. They'll go in and they'll compete. More from Greg Jennings.
Hopefully for your sake, the Kansas City Chiefs don't get blown out.
Blown out, Greg.
Hopefully for your sake. Is that a threat?
Greg, it's Greg.
You can say that when you're not going to be here the day after.
Greg, you gotta get your FaceTime. We have your FaceTime.
I'm rolling with the Texans. I have nothing to lose.
I want a better reason than I've got nothing to lose. I'm rolling with the Texans. I got nothing to lose. Give me something better than that. Craig, come on. I'm trying to give myself a deep steel blue pill here. I'm trying to have a pants tent for Texans, Chiefs tomorrow. You're not quite getting me there, but a shout out to Greg Jennings, who has been backing the Texans all week. How about somebody else? How about this? New England Patriots legend, not really a legend, but New England Patriot former player Jason McCourty on Get Up went all in and picked the Houston Texans to beat the Chiefs. Here he is.
No one in their right mind. Upset alert! J-Mac! Upset alert! Upset alert! Texans, talk to me.
Hang on. Now, I'm skeptical that Mike Greenberg is aware of the existence of J-Mac. I'm sorry. Mike Greenberg, there's only one J-Mac. Real ones know the one true J-Mac. Real ones know. Paul, what are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Ew, you pervert. J-Mac is a legend. Maybe not as versatile an athlete as Johnny Sins. But you can't call Jason McCourty J-Mac. There's only one J-Mac. More J-Mac. Just kidding. More Jason McCourty picking the Texans to upset the Chiefs.
I said it. The defense, and I think on the offensive side, you just said what's been different about these. We were talking about Jaden Daniels. What name did you mention?
C.J. Stroud.
C.J. Stroud. You got a quarterback. Who's he going to throw the ball to on the outside? Nico Collins. I think they're going to have to move Nico around and find the mismatches that they can. But I think it starts with this defense. Yes, I know these teams played already. C.J. Stroud had 2 interceptions in that game that were uncharacteristic for him, but they have to be able to get Mahomes on the ground. That is the big difference with Justin Herbert. He doesn't run as much as Mahomes. I think if they can pull that off, they have a chance to win this.
Here's what's frustrating me about all these predictions, because on one hand, the amount of people that are picking the Texans, it is surprising. But none of these predictions picking the Texans are being done with against the Chiefs, not against the Texans. All these predictions pro-Texans beating the Chiefs, they're not really strong ones. They're not very forcible ones. They're the kind of predictions that I think people are making because they want to zag and be the first to pick the Chiefs to lose. But everyone who's doing it is being kind of cautious in the same way that people who constantly picked against the New England Patriots back in the day weren't cautious. I mean, people really plopped their schmenzer on the table when it came to picking against the Patriots back in the day. You had Max Kellerman, Trent Dilfer, among many others who proclaimed the Patriots dead many, many times. And no one's doing that with the Chiefs, who are in the midst of a back-to-back Super Bowl run looking for a third straight Super Bowl, which has never been done in the Super Bowl era. And everyone's being real cautious because they don't want to get slammed for it. And it does feel like some people are picking the Texans because of the pass rush, how they looked against the Chargers, and because it is a zag, especially considering the Chiefs are 9-point favorites in this game. But so I like that some people are picking the Texans to the point where I'm kind of getting uncomfortable with how many people are picking the Texans, and it does make me feel like maybe there's too many people picking them. This isn't going to be as much of a shock the world kind of deal as it would be just given the line in Vegas. But no one's doing it with a lot of oomph. They're all saying, if this happens, if that happens, the Chiefs should be concerned, blah, 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 if you've been paying attention to this live stream all week. One last pro Texans over Chiefs prediction. This is Craig Carton on Breakfast Ball with, guess what? Greg Jennings there, Stink, Mark Schlereth, and my guy, Danny Parkins. This is all on Fox Sports 1.
The Kansas City Chiefs haven't played a game in over 3 weeks. In NFL parlance, as the former players, we call that rust. They're not going to come out of the gate flying on all cylinders. They're going to be off-tempo and very rusty. That's number one.
Let me ask you a question real quick. Have they ever won after 24 days off?
They have 0 wins in the franchise's history with 24 days of rest. That's number one.
Right, I'm just going to make sure I remember all these.
They're going up against the best defense they will have seen the entire year. A defense that gets to the quarterback better than anybody else. And what's the weakness on Kansas City's side? The offensive line stinks. Mahomes has been hit more than any time in his career. He's going to be on his rear end a lot in this game. And number 3.
Danny, who used to cover the Chiefs in Kansas City at a Kansas City radio station. Look at his face. He seems rather skeptical of Craig Carton, Syracuse legend, Z89 radio legend.
Number 3, because you like to fight with stats and facts. That's new to me, as you may know.
Yeah.
But I found one that cannot be argued against.
Okay.
This year, so forget about past, this year, your beloved Kansas City Chiefs are winless in the 4:30 window. They have not won a single game all year when they play at 4:30.
So there you go. There you go, everybody. That's Craig Carton. So, ooh, that's not good. Did I just get a copyright strike? Perhaps. Okay, interesting. Well, here's something that's going to happen going forward. We are probably not going to be playing the video from Fox Sports or ESPN. This is it. That's the last you'll ever see. But those are some things that Craig Carton brought up as to why the Texans could win. Yeah, I've done it a couple of times this week. Okay, so we're going to have to be a little bit careful with what we do on the stream going forward. I'm promoting their shows. I don't get why that's bad. Anyway, whatever. All right, let's read some comments. Next time you join this live show, which ideally will begin at 4 p.m. Central Time on youtube.com/Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says, on Twitter @Gallant Says, Instagram @SportsGallant, facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, Monday through Friday, and occasionally after major Houston sporting events, and available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and SoundCloud. You can ask me a question, and I will answer it immediately if, as you see up here on the stream to my right, you super chat. I don't want to rip people off. You don't need to get answered. You don't need to pay for a super chat to get answered. But if you want it answered right away, that's what we'll do. What we're going to try to do going forward is at the very end of the show, unless you're 100% talking about the same thing I am, we're going to work in comments by you guys at the very end. If you want to cut the line and have it answered immediately and hear former Houston Texan Wade Smith say this before I answer that question,
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
I'll do it. You'll hear that noise, and I will answer your question right away. With the software I'm using, I can't feature the chat on the actual stream so people can read it, but I can read it, and I will read it right away if you do that. So let's go through some of the comments here. We got a couple of questions, I think, on Instagram @SportsGallant. Evan Vasquez asks, if the Texans are winning by 3 at halftime, are the Texans winning? They won't feel like they're winning. That's for damn sure. I mean, hell, 24-0 on the road won't feel like they're winning either. Though 24-0 on this Chiefs team, a lot easier to sit on than the last one, where they gave up a 51-7 run. Good God. 51-31 that game. Dunny says, porn stash Paul. We are sticking with the mustache until the end of the playoffs. It's a playoff stash. We did a playoff beard last year. Texans for Life says, I hope Azeez Al-Shaair can get to Mahomes. I agree. We had a couple of callers, and I'll post some of those calls to my Twitter, at Gallant Says, Instagram, at Sports Gallant, and TikTok, at Gallant Says, over the next couple of hours, because we got some really fun calls. One of those calls was basically saying, yo, let's light Patrick Mahomes up. And honestly, I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. If Mahomes is doing his tightrope up the sideline bullshit, someone's got to light him up, even if it takes a 15-yard penalty. Because you got to let him know that that's not going to come easy. Paul, you're dirty. Well, no, I just am pro defenders. And let's be honest, the Houston Texans don't really seem to give a shit about the well-being of quarterbacks, given what they did to Justin Herbert, given what Al-Shaair did to Trevor Lawrence, which was unnecessary roughness, but I don't think merited a 3-game suspension. Maybe everything that happened afterwards led to said 3-game suspension. Robert McCrory asks, would you be comfortable with a 3-touchdown lead at halftime with Patrick Mahomes? No. No. Desert Stro comments on YouTube, if the Texans score 18 points or more, they win this game. No, I think they're going to have to score more than that. Look, the Chiefs still scored 27 points in a game where the Texans defense, I thought, did a pretty good job. But they only got 1 sack because 2 got taken off the board, one by, actually both by penalties, and one also by review, which determined it was a forward pass and not a fumble. Could have been a touchdown for the Texans. More comments here on YouTube. You can also comment on Instagram at Sports Gallant, Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, on X at Gallant Says, and on YouTube at Paul Gallant, twitch.tv/Gallant Says. Rick the Ruler 713 comments, at least Stroud's head will be in the game. Throw out the fourth quarter. Dude broke down and turned into a crybaby live on TV. I couldn't believe it. The game was over as soon as Tank was out. Seven's head wasn't in it no more. I don't agree with that. Right after that happened, the Texans stuffed the Chiefs at midfield. And the problem is, right after they stuffed the Chiefs at midfield, on 2nd and 8, they ran a wide receiver screen, their 4th of the game, and it didn't work. And then 3rd and 9, Stroud had Dalton Schultz open for a first down. Stroud's head was in the game. Stroud hit Schultz. Schultz dropped the fucking ball. A little bit later, you can maybe argue Stroud's head wasn't entirely in the game. They got to the Chiefs 10, down 8. Stroud is under pressure, rolls to his right, runs out of bounds for a 5-yard loss. He should have thrown it away. Would have been 2nd and goal from the 10 instead of 2nd and goal from the 15. He gets called for a delay of game after that. Like they hung in this longer than you might have thought. The problem was after that possession, then the Chiefs offense got going and the Texans weren't able to stop them the rest of the way. Carl Bass comments, 24 hours from now, the facts will be evident. Yeah, less than 24 hours from now. And there will be a watch party on this YouTube channel at Paul Gallant, also on Twitch at Gallant Says, Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, on X at Gallant Says, on Instagram at Sports Gallant tomorrow. Desert Stro says, my vibes are definitely high. I wish my vibes were there. Mike G says, Stephen A. and Nick Wright's epic bad takes are going to make CJ go full Ultra Instinct. 0 chance. Guys, CJ doesn't give a shit about what talking heads like me say. Although I suppose they're more successful talking heads than me, but you get what I'm saying here. Like, it's fun to make fun of Rex Ryan after the fact for saying the Texans were a bye week for the Chargers, but come on. They had all season of shooting themselves in the foot as a reason to play better, and they have yet to play up to their potential all season long, including in this game against the Chargers, where it took them about a quarter and a half to do anything. It took a 3rd and 16 play, a broken one, for the Texans to have a 99-yard touchdown drive. They looked best offensively the final 2 possessions of the first half. Second half, some of the same shit was going down. More comments. Jose Jimenez says, need to win this, man. I agree. Desert Stro says, fuck YouTube. Yeah, YouTube, I think I might have a copyright strike against me. We will see. Hopefully not. But I got an email saying, live stream copyright notice. Your stream was interrupted. What else do we have here? That's just about it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in for this Texans-Chiefs preview. Tomorrow, kickoff at 3:30. I'll do a live stream watch party during the game. I will do a post-game live stream after the game. Sunday, I'm going to be on Channel 11, KHOU, for Sports Extra. We might do a show on Sunday, depending on how things go Saturday. I think we'll do it if they win. If they lose, I don't really know what we'll do. We probably won't have a stream on on Sunday, but we will be back doing this on Monday, 4 o'clock Central Time. Eventually, we'll actually get this thing started at 4. My big prediction, in case you're just tuning in, because we are about to wrap up. The Texans beat the Texans the first time the Texans and Chiefs played each other this year. Go back to watch the beginning of the video. There's lots of examples of them shooting themselves in the foot in that game. But even with that said, I still think the Chiefs are a better team. And the reason I'm picking the Chiefs to win and to cover is because I just can't believe that the Texans offense is going to stop shooting themselves in the foot the way they have all year, every week, this week on the road against the 2-time defending Super Bowl champions with a Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame coach, Hall of Fame tight end, Hall of Fame pass rusher, and one of the best home field advantages in the NFL in sub-32-degree weather. I don't think this is the week that they're finally going to put it all together. I just don't think it's ever going to happen this year. Maybe next year it does. But with the offensive line issues that they have, with no Tank Dell, who was the best player in that first Texans-Chiefs game, I just don't think it's going to happen. Anyway, guys, I appreciate everybody who has tuned in. If you haven't already, this is best enjoyed on YouTube or Twitch. Please, if you haven't already, like this video on YouTube and subscribe, or subscribe to me on Twitch. You can also get it on Twitter at Gallant Says, Facebook.com/Paul Gallant Sports, and on Instagram. We try to do this thing every weekday, 4 p.m. Central, or at their major Houston sporting events. You can get it after the fact in podcast form, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on SoundCloud. Clay Walker, give me a deep steel blue pill to get us out of here. So long, farewell, have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and go Texans. Throw up that H!